controlling the tongue. It's a lot, right? We saw in Proverbs 18:21 that life and death are held in the tongue. And that's true, right? We've heard about the power of the pen, we understand that the way things are communicated from the public sector, the public forum, is really important, right? And we see that happening today in our own country. But also in an interpersonal nature, you see the power of the tongue. And God places a huge amount of importance in controlling the tongue. And a lot of the book of Proverbs throughout really talk a lot about that. But in the tongue, there's power, there is danger, and blessing. And we talked a little bit about power last time. We're going to hit danger and blessing today. So last time we said that from out of, according to Matthew 12, from out of the mouth, what is in the heart comes forth, right? And if you have the evil in your heart, the evil will come forth out of your mouth. If you had good in your heart, the good will come forth out of your mouth. Jesus says there, as he's talking to the scribes and Pharisees, he says that when those things come out, it will reveal who you are, and you will give an account for every careless word. By your words, you will be justified or condemned. So it's very serious. God places a lot of emphasis on what we say, right? Our words can bring healing or harm, and we saw that in Proverbs 12:18. It's like the thrusting of a sword. It can be, right? And then we talked about how we emphasize speaking where the Bible speaks. That's so we don't get off into our own tangents and say things that really aren't true or aren't wise. And so if we can really infuse our lives with the Word, then many times we'll have a better chance of controlling this, as James calls it in James chapter 3, this consuming fire, right? It's a small member of the body, but it has a very large impact. And so if we speak where the Bible speaks, then we're in a much safer territory. Then we talked about the power of the words that we have. We looked at Proverbs 15, 1 through 4. And we talked about a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. When we're talking interpersonally, how we relate, if we can deal with others gently, that does a lot with our interpersonal relationships. In verse 2 of 15, the tongue of the wise makes the knowledge acceptable, and the mouth of fools spouts folly. So when we're teaching and when we're trying to help those around us, a wise tongue is one that helps people want to accept what is being said. And then in 15:4, a soothing tongue is a tree of life, but perversion in it crushes the spirit. And so when we're trying to help somebody, again, having the right word and a way to help people and to empathize with them is like a tree of life, right? So there's a lot of power in the words that we use. And I won't go through all of these, but we saw that power last week. And then we talked about, have you experienced in your own life the power that words have to harm or to heal? All right, so we'll go into some new territory today. The danger of your words, the danger of your words. Let's look at some scripture. Let's look at Proverbs 10:19 as we get into today's lesson. And I didn't put some of these other verses here, but we can kind of hit a couple of them. I'll start in 18. He who conceals hatred has lying lips, and he who spreads slander is a fool. When there are many words, transgression is unavoidable, but he who restrains his lips is wise. The tongue of the righteous is as choice silver, and the heart of the wicked is worth little. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of understanding. So let's kind of go through that. When we're looking at this, the verse 18, he who conceals hatred has lying lips, and he who spreads slander is a fool. What is that saying?
Well, at first reading, and almost the first part of 18, almost, it's like, when you first read it, it was like, does that mean that everybody hates? But
Yeah.
But then, like you kept thinking, it was like, you know, in the past, probably every one of us experienced or had thoughts of some type of hatred. In our life, and maybe not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. As many proverbs here, it kind of talks about both ends of the spectrum, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And it's really kind of talking about both ends of the spectrum. Did I see a hand go up? Yeah, go ahead.
I think if you're spreading slander, eventually, you know, your lies are gonna catch up. Somebody's gonna realize, well, that's not true. And so then
Yeah.
you're gonna look like a fool, it says in
Yeah.
the previous part of that verse. So if you're going around speaking ill, bad, lying, you know, misrepresenting the truth, you know, it's gonna catch up with you. You're
Yeah.
definitely gonna be a fool.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna listen to you.
Yeah, that's how I kind of read it. He who conceals hatred has lying lips. So there are times when if you have something in your heart that you think that needs to be said to somebody, and you don't say anything, then really that's almost like lying, right? That's when you don't have the courage to say the truth directly to somebody, right? And you can't say it directly to somebody. But then on the opposite end, he who spreads slander is a fool. So if you don't like that person and you don't like what they're doing or whatever else, and then you go and talk to everybody else about it, then that's unwise, right? That's super unwise. But isn't that the exact thing that we often do? Like, we don't have the courage to go and to face those who we might want to talk to and say something about and say, hey, there's some things that you're doing that I don't like, or whatever, but we don't have the courage to do that, so then we go and we slander somebody, you know, and talk really kind of behind their back. That's really what this is saying, right? So there's times, right, to open your mouth and to speak, and there are times to keep your mouth shut. Right? Exactly. And the wisdom is to know when that is the case, right? But definitely, if we need to have a conversation with somebody, we owe them the courage, and we need to have the courage to be able to tell that to them directly, right? We see that in Matthew 18, right? When your brother has some issues, right, you need to deal with, what are you supposed to do? You go to him in private first, right? And then when things don't get resolved, then you take it to the next level and go with 2 or 3 witnesses. But Solomon here is saying, or the proverbial writer, I should say, is saying that there are times to shut your mouth, and there are times to speak up when you need to. I really like the next one. Where there are many words, transgression is unavoidable. What does that mean to you?
The more you say, the more chance that you have to say the wrong.
Say the wrong thing, exactly. And how many of us have done that? I'll put my hand up high, right? You just keep talking, right, to have something to say, and then pretty soon you say something and you're like, ooh, that's going to be very hard to be undone, right? Now I got to say many more words and try to apologize for the things that I've said, and it's true. Go ahead, Josh.
You see our political leaders do this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, you know, in a debate, oh, yeah, what they said, yeah. And then they start going off, stop talking.
You'd be much better served just to zip the lip. They can't do it. Yes, and it's not only our political leaders, though, too. I think we have that, too, you know. I have that sometimes in my repertoire as well, especially when I'm very passionate about something. That's when it kind of comes out. If I don't care that much, like, whatever, you can say what you want, whatever. But there are times where I'm, like, super passionate about something, and I'm like, I'm just gonna have to say some things, and then many times I go a little bit too far. But it says transgression is unavoidable. So you're going to step into the pit when you're using too many words. And he who restrains his lips is wise. So yeah, sometimes you need to know when to be silent. The tongue of the righteous is as choice silver, and the heart of the wicked is worth little. Okay, so these verses basically are saying there's a time to speak truth, and there's a time to be quiet, and wisdom is the difference. It is the way to know the difference. All right, and then last one, Proverbs 17. 27 and 28, which says, "He who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding." What does that mean, cool spirit? What kind of words would we use in our vernacular today? Even temper, level head, right? He can control himself, like he's in control of his faculties, right? Even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is considered prudent. Okay, what does that remind you of? Oh, come on, you've heard the old saying. Exactly, and that's typically credited to Mark Twain, I think, right? But I think Mark Twain must have read his Bible. Because thousands of years before him, it's exactly what it says. Even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is considered prudent, right? And so there are times when the best part of our tongue is to keep it trapped behind the doors, right? The doors of our lips, okay? So I wanted to talk to us a little bit. What is silence an antidote to? Right? So all of these verses really are talking about, when to speak and when not to speak. So what is silence and the ability to shut up? What is it an antidote to?
Anger.
It's an antidote to anger, right? When you're angry, right, that's usually when things really kind of start to come out, right? What does Ephesians chapter 4 say about when you're angry? It doesn't say anger is wrong. It says be angry, but do not sin in your anger, right? Absolutely. So anger is not a sin, right? The emotion itself, the feeling itself is not a sin. It's what you do with it, right? And many times we can sin with our lips and sin with our tongue when we're angry, right? So holding our tongue is a big deal. So it's an antidote to sin when we're angry. Okay, good. What else? Yes, sir.
Well, that actually happened to me this morning. It was in a group conversation, and I misunderstood something that somebody said,
Yeah.
and I replied, and they laughed at it, and I said that wasn't funny, and they laughed again, and I just about went off on them. And I went to Lisa to kind of vent to her or whatever, and she explained a different way of looking at it and helped me
Not to do that.
go off on me.
Yeah. That's great when our spouses help us with that, right? That's awesome. So at the chance of offending you, I'm not trying to offend you, but it's kind of the antidote to pride, right? And so that's exactly right? Sometimes we're like, "Ugh," you don't understand what I'm saying here, and then, especially if somebody does kind of laugh, because then it becomes offensive to us.
It was a misunderstanding on my part.
Yeah.
I would look like a fool.
Yeah.
It would have been
The scripture would have played out in your life today. Exactly, absolutely, right? It's an antidote to pride, because as soon as we start speaking like that, we expose ourselves, right? And hey, we're all guilty of doing exactly that, right? And I can't tell you how many times, out of pride, trying to protect my own ego, I've said things that I instantly regret, right? Yeah, did you have your hand up, Ron?
I was just going to say, it's something proper, they just don't even aware, talks about being a fool if you just keep your mouth closed, you consider wise.
Yeah, right here in 17. Yeah, 17:27. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, so that's an important piece, right? Just keeping our mouth closed. What else is silent an antidote to? We said it's an antidote to sinning when you're angry. It's an antidote to pride. What else is it an antidote to? According to some of the scriptures we read there too. An antidote to harming others, right? It's an antidote to people considering us unwise. I'll just put it that way, right? Or prideful. It is also an antidote to having to go back and to fix relationships that are damaged in an instant, right? So, okay. Any other comments? I heard something said about trust, and I think it probably applies here too, which is trust is gained over time with lots of work and effort, right? But it's lost in a moment, right? And I think that's really true, and I think that's why the proverbial writer is telling us to be so careful with our tongue. Okay, so the power of the tongue. I'm going to have to start doing this in PowerPoint. It just doesn't look that good up there compared to what it looks like down here. On the opposite side of that is what a blessing, it can be to hear the right thing at the right time from the right person, right? And how encouraging it can be when people are at the depths of despair or at the end of their rope, or when they're about to do something they may regret, right? And then having the wise counsel come to you with that is such a blessing, right? And you can bless people with your words as well. So let's look in Proverbs and look at all the different ways and descriptions of how the tongue can actually be a blessing. Let's start in Proverbs 12, and we'll do 22. Okay, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal faithfully are his delight. And then I'm going to read a couple more here. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims folly. And then we'll skip to 25. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. Okay, the righteous is a guide to his neighbor, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. All right, so let's analyze these verses here for a second. So according to these verses, how can your words be a blessing?
They can be helpful to others.
Okay, and how is that according to these verses?
They can cheer up a person who is feeling bad about the world,
Yeah,
about their life, about what's going on.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 22 says that lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, and those who deal faithfully are his delight. So when we deal faithfully and we're doing the right things, including the words that we say, we are a delight unto the Lord. So that's an amazing thing. And then, 25, anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. What is this idea of anxiety in a man's heart? You see people who are dealing with anxiety. What do we call that other than anxiety? I mean, we call it anxiety too. Stress. What else do we call it? Worry. Okay. What else do we call it? Depression. Yeah, absolutely. All of those things, right? Do you see that in the lives of people around you? Shake your head this way, right? And many times sometimes people even hide where they're at, but you can kind of tell from the weakness of their smile or the downtrodden eyes, that they're going through something that's pretty serious right now. And the proverbial writer here says that a good word makes it glad. There is a way that when people are down or depressed or stressed or whatever else, that we can help in that situation. We can make it glad, right? And then the next one, 26, although not directly about the tongue, I love the first one, which is the righteous is a guide to his neighbor, right? You have a ton of influence with those who are around you, but especially when they're dealing with difficult times. All right, comments about that before we move on to 15. Okay, 15:23. A man has joy in an apt answer, and how delightful is a timely word. Okay, a man has joy in an apt answer. What does that say to you? What does that mean to you? Have you ever had the experience of when somebody asks you a question that immediately you eloquently and concisely and well-spokenly gave somebody the right answer, and they're like, thank you, that's perfect, that's exactly what I needed to hear. How does that make you feel? Beyond how it makes them feel. Super, right? You're gonna listen to me? Yeah. I said it in such a way that you could accept that? That's awesome, right? It doesn't happen very often. That's right, that's why it's written in here. It does happen once in a while, right? It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, the person who gives the apt answer really has a lot of joy, right, in their heart. Hey, I was able to help somebody, or I was able to be relied upon, or whatever. And I think us guys, I think we take pride in that, right? Do you guys feel that? You know, I feel that. Like, you know, we want to be known, you know, as having expertise, you know, or to be able to help people, right? I mean, you watch guys all the time, right? What do the guys talk about? You know, we typically are not like emotionally driven in our talking. We're always talking about things, right? And if you watch guys, many times they're talking about something and they kind of want to prove what they know, right? Just ask somebody about grilling. No. You only flip it over one time, because you flip it over the second time, you're going to dry it out, right? Whatever. Cars, guns, right? When guys are talking, they're showing their expertise, right? Their knowledge, right? And they want to be known as somebody who can be trusted and has something to share, right? And there's a joy when just at the right time, the thing that you have to share is something that can help somebody else, right? And I love this, right? A man has joy in an apt answer, and how delightful is a timely word, even if it's rare. Right? Absolutely. So there's blessing in words. Let's do 16:24. All right. Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. All right. So this idea, we talked last week about a honeycomb, right? That was something that was refreshing. You know, you find that, you know, when you're out, you know, having a travel in their time, that's super refreshing. It brings back energy. It gives you what you need to move on. Pleasant words are that to us and to our soul. Sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Does it physically heal the bones? Not actually, right?
You think about it, you know, when someone says something nice to you, whatever, and you feel good.
Sometimes all day.
Yeah. You feel good.
Sometimes all day. Absolutely. I've had that happen to me before. That's also rare, right? But, you know, just for whatever reason, I've had days at work, I've had days, you know, elsewhere where you're kind of communicating or whatever, and everything just kind of seems to go right. And then pretty soon, you know, that energy just starts to flow to everybody else, right? I've had like meetings where, like back-to-back meetings, 3 or 4 meetings in a row, and you know, the energy from the good meetings that happen just ahead of that just flows into the, you know, the 4th meeting, and people are like, "What's wrong with you today? You seem awfully cherry." You know, there's a spring in your step today. Well, absolutely, because there's a momentum, right, from our words, and how they can cheer people up. And I love it, you know, healing to the bone, right? If you think about all the way to the bone, if you have enough encouragement in your life, then that's really something that can then really kind of change the course of your life, right? It can heal so many hurts down deep in your soul. And we need people in our lives who can bring us up with their words, right? Yes, sir.
Well, as far as the healing to the bone, when you say something to somebody or something like that, if they're, whether it's just the flu or if it's, you know, they're in the hospital, it can actually make them forget about their pain for a little bit. I mean,
For a little bit,
heal
yeah.
to the bone to some extent, not like actually, you know, heal a broken leg, but it can make them for a short time forget.
Yeah.
You know, that's, I mean, that, it makes me think of that Robin Williams kids that, you know, you think of St. Jude's commercials and, you know, the doctors and nurses are trying to infuse the funny things and the fun things, and the kids are like, it helps them.
Absolutely.
Forget about their pain.
Even if only for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, agreed. And, you know, we need people like that in our lives, but we also, as much as possible, we need to be that for other people as well, right? And so, encouraging words. I think of, you know, Kyle was playing baseball this year, and we had a head coach. I think he did a really good job, but there was like a coach and an assistant coach and then two dads, and I was one of the dads, and that really kind of helped, so there's four of us. And I think as to a man, all four of us were just very encouraging to the kids. And I heard back on the last game that many kids thought that that was the best season ever. I think we won like 2 games, maybe 3. It wasn't a ton, right? But the kids were super excited, and they loved it. Like, we want to be on this team again. I'm like, well, you lost most of your games. Like, but that wasn't it. I think it was because of the encouragement, right? And if you've ever been on a sports team where, you know, you're not doing great, you know, sometimes an encouraging word helps you to just like come back to the next time, or just to continue to go on, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Part of this was your blessing through your words, but many years ago, I don't know how long ago, we had Promise Keepers. And
Oh, yeah.
I heard a lesson on that. And one of the guys that spoke, he said that 95% of the men that are in prison never had a blessing,
Yeah,
a good word, a good teaching, a good example from the Father.
yeah,
He said that was something that he had interviewed
yeah,
thousands of prisoners.
yeah,
It was a common thing that they never got the blessing from the Father, so,
yeah.
that just really
We don't,
stayed
yeah.
relevant to this day.
yeah, we don't realize how much impact we have as fathers and as brothers and just as men, you know, on our families, on the church, and all the rest of it. You know, so many times people are looking to us for leadership, and we kind of understand that, but we don't many times understand that they're looking to us for an encouragement and a strengthening as well, right? And we can do that through our words. So that's a great comment. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, 25:11. All right. Like apples of gold in settings of silver is a word spoken in right circumstances. I'll read the next one too. Like an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold is a wise reprover to the listening ear. I think that's fantastic. What is that saying?
The right word at the right time is very valuable.
Super valuable, right? And this apples of gold in settings of silver, what is that?
It's not what it's on the outside, it's on the inside.
Yeah, yeah. What did I see?
Probably some kind of decoration, I'm just thinking like maybe something that they would
Yeah,
know that's maybe more common to them.
yeah. Like a decoration, like a centerpiece, right? Like a centerpiece, like some wonderful crafted art that has a ton of value, right? Our words spoken at the right time, right? It has a ton of value, right? And a ton of beauty. And really, I think that's what the proverbial writer is trying to say here. 13, like the cold of snow in the time of harvest, is a faithful messenger to those who send him, for he refreshes the soul of his masters, right? When it's super hot, and we experience this today, isn't it great to be able to go into an air-conditioning building and be able to be like, oh, that feels so good, it's refreshing, you know? I was weary, and now I've got something to look forward to. I got something that's helping me, right? And that's exactly what it is when it comes to our words. And then we'll move on to the next topic here after we hit Colossians. Just real quick, Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. It says, let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person. So here, the word spoken to the Colossians is, hey, your speech matters, right? It needs to be with grace. What does that mean? It's everything we just talked about, right? We're to be seasoned with grace. We are to be an encouragement to those who are in the church, as though seasoned with salt. So what would that have meant to them at the time, seasoned with salt? Say again, sorry.
Maybe like a preservation or something like that.
Yeah, you would salt something to take the water out of it, and then it would be preserved, right? And then it could last for significantly longer, right? Seasoned with salt is like a preservative. It just helps things to continue to last. Did I see another hand? Okay. We see it much more as a seasoning, and it is, and it's a great seasoning, and it makes some food that's really bland really taste significantly better, right? And so I think maybe there's an aspect of that in here as well, but it's also a preservative, so that you will know how you should respond to each person, right? Paul told Timothy to be instant, in season and out of season, right? Ready to preach the word, right? And that's part of this as well, right? Knowing what to say at the right time for not only emotional encouragement, but also spiritual encouragement. I will say this, when we think about our tongue, many times, especially here, when we're talking, a lot of times we're talking, but we're not necessarily talking about things that are uplifting or spiritual. And maybe that's something that we should consider doing differently. Maybe after services or when we get together as men, how can we actually apply that in our lives, right? We're told to confess our sins one to another, right? But if you do that, there's a lot of courage that's required, and then there's also a lot of vulnerability in that, right? But when guys come through and they do exactly what was said there in Colossians and what is being taught here in Proverbs, and have a helping hand or the right word or some word of encouragement, it means all the difference in the world, right? You get the connection that we need to have as brethren and as men, right? I love movies about like the connection between men and brothers, right? And how when it's strong enough, men will literally give their lives, to help and to protect their brothers. And that's just something that really kind of speaks to me. And we need that. We need that in our friendships, and we need that in our lives. So, all right. Questions or comments about that? Does that resonate with anybody? Right? Absolutely. We need each other. All right, so I'm going to,
Can I mention?
maybe I'm not. Go ahead.
As men, we need to understand how to talk to women.
Yeah, that's true too.
I don't know if you talked about this already, but before we respond to our wives or to other women, we have to understand if they just want us to listen,
Yeah.
because we always want to try and fix things. This is what you should do. And we need to really, before we leap in with trying to solve whatever we think is the problem, we need to just listen. Maybe that's all we need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Bill is saying we need to know how to respond to everyone, but especially to women. There are times when they need us to just listen instead of trying to say something, right? And I do think that is the counsel here that the proverbial writer is trying to give, which is there's time to be silent, right? And then there's time to just listen. And there's times to try to bring forth some wisdom, but sometimes we can say things that, in trying to help, can actually take things in the wrong direction. That's a really good point. So I'll just say something personally about that. This is going to sound very funny, But at one time in our marriage, Tanya and I had difficulty having children. Yeah, you look now, you're like, you got that solved, right? But we were childless for 6 years, right? And so after we had started to try or whatever, and it was a very difficult time for us because, that was something that we really wanted to do. So we really wanted to start a family, and we had looked forward to doing that, and it was always something I wanted to do, or her as well. And so then, obviously, we were able to have kids, and that was fantastic. But then later in life, we had another couple that we were very close to, who were also unable to have kids for a while. And one time, he sat down and he talked to me, and he's like, I really appreciate you. I'm like, well, why? And he's like, everybody else, when they come up and they talk to me, they say, oh, time will heal this wound, or I know somebody else who has the same problem, or whatever else, trying to be helpful, right? And he said, the most helpful thing I think that you've done for me is you just listen. You just listen, right? And that was like, a badge of honor for me. But I knew exactly what it felt like from having gone through it before. And sometimes when we say things, in trying to help, we actually make some things kind of worse. Sometimes people just need you to listen and understand and not try to solve it. Because there's nothing anybody can do about that anyway, right? Unless you have a medical degree and other things, right? And you're right. There are times the best thing to do is just to keep the tongue behind the barn doors. So, all right. That did kind of take us to the end of our class session. Is there anything else we want to talk about that just before we end? We do have a minute or two, maybe. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Mitch.
That was one of the struggles that I had, at least when I started, because my first thought is I want to fix it.
Yeah.
When, especially with Lisa. And so after a while, it was like, when she started talking, I would stop her and say, okay, you listen or do you need to fix it? Or she would preface it with, I don't want you to fix it, I just want you to listen.
Yeah.
So,
Isn't it so much better when we get good instruction with that as well? Like exactly when people tell us what they want. That's good. That's also good communication. And so, maybe we can do a guest visit in the female class and the ladies class and say, hey, it's great when you give us good instruction as well. That's part of the tongue. All right, let's pray as we end. Dear Father, thank you for this time that we have to come to, again, open up your word and to study. We're grateful that you have continued to show us through your word how we can continue to change, how we can continue to improve and be more like you and your Son. God, there are so many ways in which we sin, and many of those have to do with the way we communicate. And we just ask that you give us wisdom. And give us wisdom to know when to say things. Give us wisdom to know when not to. Give us wisdom to say the right thing at the right time so that we can be just as described in the New Testament, so that our speech can be seasoned with salt and that we can speak with grace. That we need to be ready to do these things, and we hope to be ready to do these things. And we just ask as men that you help us to control these things. Don't let our pride get in the way. Help us to just to have clear and good motives in trying to help people, to encourage them, to get them through their daily walk so that they can be ever more like you. God, as we go into the service, we want to worship you in spirit and in truth. In spirits because it's from our hearts, and we give our heart and our emotion to you. But God, as importantly, is that we do it in truth. We do it as the way you have commanded and the way you have give us authority to see and to do. And we just ask that in both of these things that we continue to strive to be ever better and more closer to your will. This is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen. Oops. That's a problem. appreciate that. Oh. Would you mind helping me put this up there? Those wheels feel like they're maybe starting to get locked or.
Yeah, the thing's
Yeah.
down.